Mathematical Society from 94 to 96. I'm founding director of the Pacific Institute of Mathematical Sciences, the PIMS, for the period 96 to 2003. He was co-editor-in-chief of the Canadian Journal of Mathematics and co-founder of the MyTax Network of Centers of Excellence, and is the founder and current scientific director of the Banff International Research Station, the Birs. Let me say that this program, the Birs, the Banff International Research Station, is for many years has been the only project in education which has these three countries, Mexico, the United States, and Canada, as a working platform. And let me say that Nassif is somehow the head and the heart of the project, of the Birs project, and also of this collaboration between our countries, Mexico, the States, and Canada, of course. So I'll let you with Nassif. Thank you.
Thank you, José Antonio. First, let me thank my good friends, Alejandro Adem and Pepe Saadi, for organizing this wonderful forum. I mean, there's lots of things that we can learn from the Mexicans, but definitely this is one of them where we can really have politicians and thought leaders and decision makers and even university administrators together to have discussions of this sort. I don't think this kind of forum happens often in Ottawa, if any. So thank you, Alejandro, and thank you, Pepe. I would like to thank I'm José Antonio. I have to say that I'm very honored to be introduced by José Antonio de la Peña. José Antonio, I've known him in the 90s when we used to represent our countries. And it's the first time somebody tells me that I'm not speaking loud enough, so my family is not here, obviously. I've known José Antonio since the 90s when he used to represent Mexico in the International Math Union, and I knew how much he cared about connecting Mexico to the Mexican scientific community, especially the mathematical science community, to the rest of the world. He was tirelessly always working to develop connections with Brazil and all those Latin American countries. And then, at some point, when I became the director of PIMS, the Pacific Institute for Mathematical Sciences, we started thinking about the Pacific Rim countries, developing some kind of mathematical union, if you will, and who to contact in Mexico. Well, Europeans have a term for somebody who your benefactor, somebody who's just who's surprised. You don't know, unexpected benefactor. It's called Oncle d'Amérique. Your American uncle is somebody who's supposed to be rich. You didn't know he existed, and then all of a sudden you discover you have this American uncle, and then you call him, and then he comes and saves the day for you. So for us in Canada, José Antonio de la Peña became the Mexican uncle. Whenever we wanted to develop any collaboration with Latin America, José Antonio was there to help us. So I'm really honored to be introduced by José Antonio. I would like to thank whoever conceived this title for my talk. It wasn't me. A model for collaboration in North America. Dr. Nemmer said that Canadians don't like to brag, but after hearing all my Canadian colleagues this morning bragging about their universities, so I think that this she was not correct 100%. So this title is a bit, maybe, I would like to characterize it as an example of collaboration as opposed to a model, because as you know, we have many models of collaboration. And my talk is going to be just about an example. I'm not an expert in collaboration. haven't developed theories in international collaboration. So I want to talk about an example, which is the Banff International Research Station. And I want to talk about people, the leadership, the people who really made it happen. Because after all, when you want to develop large-scale international collaboration, it's always about the people, not the bureaucrats, not the politicians, unless you have the people who know how to talk to the politicians. So this is going to be just a story of people, not really an intellectual exercise. Well, relax. We all had mole for lunch, and this is my first time I make a presentation after a mole, and red wine. So this is a Banff station in the Rockies in Canada. Many of you, I'm sure you know the place. It's a gorgeous place. And this is where the collaboration started. Now, oops. This is now. Okay. He's still teaching me, yeah? I know, but he's still teaching me after all these years. Okay, so we talked about the giant.
Take the bottom of in this place. This place in your hand?
No.
No. In the table.
His? No, this is, the presentation is here, not there. Anyway, so I'm going to start with something that we talked about the giant between us, United States, but I have to say that sometimes it can be a positive force. And this is an example, and this is Rita Caldwell, the former director of the National Science Foundation, who is currently on our board of directors, and she said this phrase, international cooperation adds up to more than what any nation can do alone. And for me, it has been always my mantra about developing things. Now, Dr. Nemmer also mentioned that we need a joint university, a joint Canadian-Mexican university, where we can come down in the winter and you can come up in the summer. But I want to tell Mona that you already did it. So, not a university, but it's an institute. So this is the Casa Matematica Oaxaca, which is an affiliated station to the Banff station. And this is a temporary location, but it's been working for 5 years. And I'll be telling you a bit about how we are going about working. Now I'm going backward. So this is a unique North American initiative, I would say. At least when we started, we were unique. And this is all these handsome people in the picture. We had our last board meeting in Oaxaca. The board of directors came down, and we are here with the governor of Oaxaca. You see William, and then Pepe, and Alejandro, and then we have other. So it's a joint board, Canadian, Mexican, American. We meet often, and we have people from the private sector, from Intel, and from Swiss Bank, and from the stem cell technology, the head of stem cell technology with us. So what's unique about it is that we have a joint governance. We talk quite a bit about the collaboration, about international collaboration, but it's always one-sided, or just a couple of investigators to get together. But here we are really trying to develop really equal partnership in this research infrastructure, and I think we are succeeding. So we have joint governance, as you see. We have joint scientific leadership. We have an international panel where people from all over the world are represented. We have joint sponsorship. That means we have several governments paying their share for their own investigations. And we have joined envisioning. What does it mean? That once you get people together, they have other ideas besides what they're doing. And because of this collaboration, many collaborations happen between Mexico and Canada. The Latino Congress started from this. And of course, the MyTax also connection with CONACYT and with Mexico started because of this collaboration. So this is the power of envisioning new opportunities together. I really think this is one issue that we don't discuss enough, that, because it incubates many other initiatives. Now, okay, we have new interests. We're starting another collaboration now with Hangzhou in China. So next year in 2020, Hangzhou will be it's not a full partner, it's a pilot project, and we're going to see whether things working. As you know, the politics is pretty heated internationally these days, so we don't know whether things are going to work out. But I can assure you, Canada and Mexico will always be together. So this will be the third partner. And then I can not tell you, there is also another country interested in another partnership, but it's too soon to announce. But I'm going to tell you how we function before you start thinking that maybe you are working like Starbucks or McDonald's and spreading our wings all over the world. But no, we are talking about really enhancing international collaboration and getting people together for the good of science and discovery. So what's my outline? I'm going to tell you a little bit about Birs, the story, nothing fancy, but more importantly, there's lessons learned about really the difficulties, mostly the difficulties we had to develop this international collaboration with bureaucracies, with many other issues. Because this is where we can learn the lessons, to talk about really what went, what didn't go so well, and what still we have challenges because let's face it, developing research infrastructures like this across many jurisdictions is hard. This is not easy, and it takes many people working hard and taking lots of risks. And I can tell you that Pepe, Saadi, and some other Mexican colleagues took risks when they committed to these collaborations before they had the support of their government or their etc. And maybe I should tell you, I should reassure your brother, he's not taking a second mortgage on his house in Cuernavaca, so the risk is now taken care of. We are fine. I'm going to start by talking about the mathematical sciences. I'm supposed to brag a little bit. Why the mathematical sciences? Well, because like all the sciences, we have an unprecedented rate of development within the mathematical sciences, okay? I mean, we have many conjectures that were open for hundreds of years. The Fermat last theorem, the Poincaré conjecture have been solved. We have an amazing development within the discipline. It's not anymore a discipline for the few in Princeton. We have now thousands of people around the world that are really doing some good work, and we have to really connect them together to do even better work. So the second issue is the acceleration of the mathematization of all the sciences. So mathematics is involved in all the sciences, whether in modeling or numerical computations or simulations. And so any serious science, as you all know, has to have an important mathematical component for advancement. So because of this acceleration, we felt that we need more capacity to develop this research in this area. And then we have the increasing role of the mathematical sciences in the knowledge-based society. Many of you don't hear it this way. You hear about artificial intelligence. You hear about data science. You hear about Google. You don't hear about Facebook. You hear about Microsoft, but very few realize that all these are based on mathematical research and advancement. When we talk about mathematical sciences in a very, very large sense. So, and most of the largest companies in the world are based on mathematical instruments. So, because of this, we really feel that mathematics need to develop further and to encourage more people to do it. Now, what is the Birs approach? Very simple. We need fora like this one, but for vigorous, intense, and sustained research interactions. So many of you go to conferences and you have parallel sessions, and then at 5 o'clock you go to look for restaurants, and then you go back to your hotel. No, this is a different concept. Here you put 40 mathematical scientists together for 16 hours per day where they eat and then talk and we go for hikes together, and they argue after dinner while having wine if they can. So the idea is sustained interactions. And you put people together for 5 days and 5 nights, and wonderful things happen. Okay? So this is really the concept. It is supposed to be in a retreat-like atmosphere. That's why it's not in Toronto or in Mexico City. That's why in our places like Banff or Oaxaca and Hangzhou, and not in Shanghai, okay? Because this is what we want to develop. It has to be an open and competitive process, which is the case. People can apply from all over the world for workshops at CMO and Birs, from all over the world. And only the excellent workshops go to the top, are selected by 30 people scientific panel. It's very competitive, but it's open to anybody. High standards of excellence, and you'll see, because we have high number of proposals coming from all over the world, we can have very tough competitions and very low success rates. That mean really the very, very top get access. Diverse scientific program. I will show you what do I mean by diverse. A multinational collaborative effort. So this is the Birs approach. And this is the approach that we would like to uniformize among all the affiliations, whether in CMO or Birs or Hangzhou. Okay. Now, you're going to say, okay, why Birs? I already mentioned this. But there's something that might be very relevant for your government, what I hear about its objectives. Birs is about access, intellectual access. This is about the democratization of mathematical research. For many years, hundreds of years, mathematics was done only in the academies, in real ivory towers, in the courts of the king, and later on in Princeton Institute of Advanced Studies, or at MIT or Berkeley. Things are different now. So the democratization of research, open access to people like Ramanujan from India to do top mathematics is very important. So this is why I really like the idea of intellectual access, and that's why we're providing so many opportunities. You have to multiply the opportunities. So, as I said, you have to facilitate interaction, training, dissemination, collaboration. We do this. And then when people get together, they bring the problem solving, but also they devise new project incubation. They settle controversies, especially physicists when they come and fight with each other after having wine after dinner, because they have lots of speculative conjectures. Very important aspect is networking. Young people need to have access to the ayatollahs of mathematics, like Pepe and Alejandro. They need to have access to the mandarins. That's why by being together for 5-6 days, eating together and discussing, the young postdoc, the young graduate students will sit on the table, have breakfast with the big shots, if you will, and then maybe ask for a job, ask for a postdoc, and ask for tenure track position. And this is happening. Most of the testimonials we get every day, and Pepe and I, maybe Pepe now regrets being part of this partnership because he gets lots of emails, testimonials from people at the end of each workshop. Many graduate students say, you know, I got a postdoc because I connected with so-and-so. So for us, this is a very important aspect of the operation. And we have something that we are really talking about in many, many jurisdictions now is to increase the participation of underrepresented groups in STEM, whether based on gender or race or being from underdeveloped countries, or First Nations or indigenous. So for example, last week, where are we? So last week at Birs, I'll give you an example. We have one workshop at Banff and one in Oaxaca. The one in Oaxaca was on geometrical tools for string cosmology. So when you talk about mathematical sciences in a very large sense, these are mostly cosmologists. And the organizers, one from Swansea in England, one from Oxford, one from Uppsala in, where's Uppsala? Sweden. And then the one at Banff is quantum walks and information tasks. Zaragoza, Amsterdam, UNAM, and University of Montreal. Many of you know Luc Vinet was one of the organizers. So this is just last week. Okay, so to tell you the variety of the workshops and the intellectual diversity, but notice I put equal insert nightmare. This is a lesson, first lesson we start learning. Now we talk about mathematics, computer science, statistics in a very large sense. But math physics, as you saw in some of the examples, astronomy, machine learning, artificial intelligence, multimedia, earth sciences, computational science, biology, genomics, mechanical engineering, cognitive sciences, First Nation studies, women in STEM, mathematics of climate change. We cover many, many, many areas of research. Why is it an NSERC or any granting agency's nightmare when they put the disciplines in silos? Why is this? Because they need to put you in an envelope, in a funding envelope. I don't know what I'm doing to here. They need to put you in a finish. You're really bored. I have to tell you more stories. So they need to put you in an envelope for funding. So this is a nightmare of any bureaucrat. And then when the president of a granting agency tells you, prove to me that you're interdisciplinary so that I can go make the case and get you $5 more or something like that. But look at this. And they need proofs. So this is one of the lessons learned. You really have to deal with the bureaucracy if you're trying to do the right thing. By the numbers, we have a scientific panel, 30 people, 85 workshops. We run 50 workshops in Banff, 25 in Oaxaca, and 10 in Hangzhou, beginning next year. So what does it mean? People arrive on Sunday, 42 people are invited only by invitation, and then they leave next Saturday. So you have 5 days together. So, and again, so every week we have a totally different topic, and by doing it this way, you really involve lots of people. You create lots of opportunities. That's why graduate students and postdocs and people who haven't made names for themselves can participate. It is this access. So we have more than 3,200 participants per year, more than 1,000 in Oaxaca and about 2,000 in Banff, and then they're gonna grow. The key here also, we have very low staffing requirement because of this routine, because of this kind of process. So this tells you a bit the stories. And we started in 2003. We had 79 proposals, and we could fund 46 weeks in Banff. And then the number of proposals started growing. So the first, in 2007, this is when, so we grew to 50 weeks, okay, slightly more because you have half workshops, okay? But in 2014, that's when Oaxaca started. So we could fund not just 50 workshops, we could fund 72 in 2015 and then 77, so essentially 25 more. And now, in 2020, we're gonna fund 10 more to be able to support 89 workshops. So these are the various phases of growth of this operation. But you could see now we have 250 250 proposals, and by selecting 89, we're still really, still a very competitive operation, and therefore we can preserve excellence. This is a poster, you don't care about that. And these are the countries, for example, where people come from. More than 1,000 institutions, 70 countries. Starting from Argentina, you end up with Vietnam, and you could see from which country, you see how the numbers of participants, okay? We have commitment to diversity. We have, for example, the workshops just totally dedicated to women in geometry, women in PDEs, women in analysis, and this algebraic combinatorics with a double X is not a typo. This is how the title of the workshop was. Okay, so this is, we participate in years for mathematics of planet Earth, mostly models dealing with Earth and ocean sciences. Am I? Yes. Models dealing with climate change, etc. So, and then we have special programs for First Nations, for indigenous science education. We create videos, mathematical videos for indigenous. SFU here is is our leader in this aspect, but the lady on the top left is must be a well-known Mexican that we stole from you, Melania Alvarez, and she's our main expert in developing workshops with elders and First Nations people, and also education at all levels of schools. Funding, I'm sure you're dying to know how much. I'm not going to tell you, but for Birs, Banff is funded by INSERC, the National Science Foundation, United States, CONACYT, and the Alberta government. So we have 4 governments that fund the operation at Banff. And every 5 years, they come have a joint site visit, which I really think this is a breakthrough. 5 different governments, 5 different, they put together a scientific panel. They come to Banff for 2 days. They evaluate us. We bring all the scientists that are going to say nice things about us. And then they submit their recommendation to their agencies, and they fund according to their own formulas. I can tell you, for example, that in Banff, the #1 grant, the highest grant that we get is from the National Science Foundation, the #2 is from the Alberta Innovation, and INSERC is lagging. So, so this is one of the power of international collaboration. Now, another example of how the success that this kind of collaboration generates, in Oaxaca, for the last, in CMO for the last few years, CONACYT has been the sole funder. But then, last year, or even this year, thanks to Pepe Seade, they submitted proposals to the National Science Foundation, and we got funded from the National Science Foundation in the US, and UNAM provides major support, but also we applied to the Simons Foundation, which is a private foundation in the US, and also we got funded. So now, CMO is funded by the Simons Foundation, UNAM, and the NSF. So I think this is a new aspect of funding research in Mexico. And I really think that first because of leadership of people who took on this responsibility, but also because of the power of the international collaboration between the three countries, that we were able to go after these new sources of funding for Mexico. Now the story is that we were not the first one to develop this model. There's a model, a very successful model, the Oberwolfach, which is in Germany, in the Black Forest, that works on the same model, workshops every week, etc., by invitation only. And this is well known to have saved German mathematics after World War II. It was decimated after World War II. So that was really the model that we tried to copy. It was very successful. And then the French imitated them many years later, and they created the Centre International de Rencontres Mathématiques at Lumini in Marseille. So in Europe, they had two centers like this, but they're not collaborating like we are collaborating. But then there was a review panel of the US National Science Foundation in 1999 to review US mathematics and the needs, etc., etc. What did the panel say? There was no enthusiasm among respondents for a US counterpart to an Oberwolfach conference-oriented institute. They didn't think that North America needed this kind of center, which was a great opportunity for us in Canada. But one of the lessons you want to learn is that why the committee said that. The committee, this is from the committee of the National Science Foundation. The committee strongly believes that it would not be in the best interest of either the math sciences community or society as a whole. I think Mona should be interested in this, to transfer funding from existing individual research grant programs to funding for existing or additional math science institute. So the panel had an agenda. They didn't want, they split the pie. They were worried about the people who had big grants in Princeton and MIT and big summer salaries from the NSF grants. They didn't want money to be used to start institutes. So this is one thing that we need to understand when we want to develop this kind of infrastructure, that people have different priorities, and people feel right away threatened that the pies are going to be split differently. So this is something. So the challenges are competing interests among your own colleagues, the challenges of interdisciplinarity that I already mentioned, that granting agencies just don't know how to deal with it. Of course, now they have the coordinating committee in Canada. They are trying to develop they tried to save our granting system by developing guidelines and new ways to develop interdisciplinarity and international collaboration. I would love to see this. But I would like them also to learn about the difficulties that Birs had when they, and each time we deal with INSERC for a renewal, before they develop their guidelines for international collaboration. So the rigid programming of granting agencies, international collaborations are ad hoc in principle. If you deal with Mexico, you have to adjust to really how the Mexican system works. If you deal with China, we're going to have to adjust big time. So on the other hand, granting agencies have very rigid programs. You fit or you don't fit. And this conflict here is problematic. Is there a funding envelope? And this is, I'm going to tell you, that's why, and who's paying and how much and for what. Plus, does research money cross borders? Well, as you've seen now, the NSF money is crossing borders, which is unusual. NSF money did not cross border to Canada in 2003 when we started Birs. So, antidote for all this is leadership and luck and Mexican uncles. So, this is the story of Birs. How are you going to develop a center in Canada and get INSERC to pay for it? There's no envelope for this. There's no program for this. But leadership counts. Tom Bristovsky was the president of INSERC. He was a visionary leader. I called him up. I said, we want to develop this center. I called him up in 2000. And I told him about Oberwolfach in Germany. It happened, he was a provost at Waterloo. He happened to know what Oberwolfach was and how important it was for mathematicians. I said, I want a favor. I said, I want the Americans to help us pay for it because we should not be paying for it by ourselves. All other infrastructure in Canada is paid for only by Canadians, even though we have lots of international participants. But I said, this time it's going to be different. We want the international participants to pay their way. But I said, I don't know anybody there in Washington, D.C. I would like you to connect me with them and organize a meeting. I said, not only that, I will ask my vice president, Nigel Lloyd, to go with you. He arranged for the meeting with the top NSF people and send it. You don't understand how unusual this is for INSERC. There's no way INSERC can help somebody structure a proposal. It's as bureaucratic as can be, right? You submit a proposal. If you're lucky, they'll put it in some funding envelope, and then you have to compete with everybody else, and you have to wait for... This is... Tom Bristovsky broke a taboo in saying, yeah, let's try to do it together, okay? Not leave it for the bureaucracy. This is very important. I really would have liked Ted Hewitt to stay here to listen to really what leadership is about. And it hasn't happened since at INSERC. It hadn't happened before Tom Bristovsky or since, where the leadership at INSERC says, yes, let's do it together, let's leverage our money provincially or internationally. Rita Caldwell was the president director of the NSF. She was a visionary lady, and she played. And within 6 months, they set up a special review panel, special committee to come to Banff and to review us. And they found, and they started an envelope. They didn't have an envelope for it, but they saw the vision that this is something that could work. And so it was as ad hoc as can be. About movement of funds, at that time, the NSF was not allowed to send money to Canada. So what did we do? We say, okay, why don't we partner with an American institution, and then we can send the money to them, and then they can pay bills. And this is where David Eisenbud, the third person, who was the director of the institute at Berkeley, I called him up, I said what we are doing. He said, sure, I'm on, and then they became part of the collaboration, so that NSF can send us money. But 5 years later, the NSF decided, no, we want to start sending money to Canada, even though it takes 6 months delay, it has to go through the State Department. But because of this, now the NSF funds initiatives in Canada, I don't know how many, but us, initiatives in Mexico, CMO, initiatives in France, EHOS, they fund Oberwolfa. So all of a sudden, this little idea opened up a tap in terms of international collaboration and support for research. This is lessons learned. This is, otherwise bureaucrats could have told us it's impossible. Okay, but we, where am I now? Okay, and then after the first review, after the first 3-4 years, somebody had the idea, but I can't remember. We were talking maybe at dinner. I said, why don't we include Mexico in this collaboration? So at the beginning, it was only the US and Canada. And we start thinking, we have NAFTA. And NAFTA is about money and commerce and trade and stuff like that. But they never talked about NAFTA of ideas and scientific research and collaborations. Maybe you know better, Pierre, but it was, maybe it was in the original agreement, but NAFTA never really dealt with research collaboration between the 3 countries. So we said, okay, let's try to do it. And we called José Antonio. Of course, you need luck. José Antonio at this stage, maybe 1 month after we called him, he became deputy director of CONACYT. This made simplified things quite a bit. And this is how Mexico became a full partner, but only on the workshops happening in Banff. But after a few years, when we started seeing how many proposals, how many letters of decline I was sending, and how long my enemies list was growing, then we said, no, we need to create more opportunities. And then José Antonio, Javier Bracho on his right, who was the director of the Institute of Math in Mexico City, contacted Juan Ramon de la Fuente, who connected us with the right people in the state of Oaxaca, etc. And we started supporting 25 workshops per year in Oaxaca. And Pepe now is director of CMO, and he managed to get international funding for Oaxaca. So it's really a story of people. There's no guidelines, no book to be written about this. It's just how ad hoc methods, committed people in 3 countries, and leadership really got us to, I think it's a very successful model in international collaboration. So thank you very much. I'm done.
So, thank you very much, Nassif. I think we took longer than...
Is it more? Is it longer than half an hour?
Yeah, well, your questions, you can keep it and ask him directly to Nassif.
Do you want to have questions? No? Okay.
Okay, thank you. And then we go
Thank you
to
all.
the next panel.